Travis TLC. I don't know
He
Chinese.
actually listed, didn't he list what that actually means in Chinese?
The Chinese at the start of my name is Eye of Gold. Golden Eye. Eye of Gold is Golden Eye. So
He's already a fan of the show. I love it.
It's awesome. Yeah.
I love it.
Again,
Thank you for coming on the show.
Travis TLC says, I think this is one of Brosnan's best Bond films. It's so ambitious and has one of the best villains ever and only main female villain. Electra King is such a great villain for so many reasons. I agree. She takes Bond's biggest weakness and turns it on him. Yeah, again, blood is in his dick, not his brain. Christmas Jones is obviously the low point. Yup. And a view into how the next film is, but even with her, I still love this movie. I'm one to agree. Renard is sadly underused, and so is Apparent Condition of No Pain. Yeah, we covered that.
Yep.
It's the first time M is not only in the field, but an integral part of the story, and they do it so well. I really can't fathom beyond Christmas Jones why this film gets so much hate other than a residual hate from Die Another Day. The score is incredible. The main theme is incredible. I give it a solid 8 out of 10. And then later when I asked him, where do you rank it? He said, overall, number 3. So Travis TLC, high praise for this movie. I'm not as high, but
3.
But I still think it's, again, middle high. The Entertainer says, for me, this is Brosnan's best performance, but not his best film. He really carries it together with Sophie Mercure, as Electra, who complements him perfectly as both the lover and the villain. Renard is okay, and so is Christmas Jones, who I think gets a lot of hate because she's a bland character, but is still perceived as the main Bond girl of the film. But considering that Electra is already the real Bond girl while doubling as the main villain, both Christmas and Renard should be considered side characters, although I will admit that I find Renard to also be a pretty captivating villain, although a bit underused. I like the fact that he really doesn't want anything more than to create havoc and leave Electra to pick up the pieces since he's prepared to die for her and doesn't want money like Blofeld, Zoran, Kananga, and the other villains usually does. Again, yeah, his whole world changes when he falls in love with her. Same with Bond. Falling in love with this girl is just bad news for everybody. The reason I like Brosnan so much in this one is because he doesn't just get to act cool while still getting some great action scenes like the long intro sequence, which I think is one of the best ones. But I feel the film explores Bond as a pretty damaged guy. He comes off so good in this one as an assassin that uses sex as a way to get information, but also to cope with himself.
And what about you? What do you do to survive?
I take pleasure. You turned Renard.
Just like you. Only you were even easier.
Which is why Electra gets the better of him as he believes they share a similar traumatic background. I think the skiing scene really conveys it considering its similarities to OHMSS. Yeah, we covered that. That is also why the scene where he kills Electra works so well, as he's both a stone-cold assassin and not hesitating in killing her, but afterwards leans over and caresses her. Yeah, totally. With the addition of M's facial reaction, we get a short glimpse of how messed up he actually is, but only for a couple of seconds as he immediately continues the mission by jumping out of the window. With that said, I don't think there's much more in this film that stands out. Good action, but not great. David Arnold's score is good, but the title song is garbage. Well, it was performed by garbage. What do you expect?
Good. What do you get?
What I like about this song, though, is that if you pay attention to the lyrics, it's clearly written from the perspective of Electra.
The world is not enough, but it is such a perfect place to start my love. And if you're strong enough, together we can take the world apart, my love.
Zukovsky is a good ally, but way out of character considering how he was portrayed in GoldenEye. But I don't really care. He's fun.
I think I agree with you. It's like time has passed, things have changed. Like I'm okay with that. You know?
Yeah, I think he's fun.
Yeah, I like him in the role. I like him in the film.
The entire pipeline plot is pretty uninteresting, and why do we even have to watch Bond protect an oil pipeline? A part of me always wants Renard to blow it up as a final. Are you an anarchist? As a final note, I like the fact that this is the first time M gets personally involved in the story, hinting at what they would later do in Skyfall. The relation between Bond and Elektra is the high point of the film, but the rest is, for me, is pretty average. Like I said, I think this is Brosnan's best performance, but at the moment, I rank it as his second best film after GoldenEye, followed by DAD, Die Another Day, and Tomorrow Never Dies. In my overall ranking, this film sits at number 11. So that's a middle argument.
It's a middle, yeah.
Blastoise says, perhaps
Ethan Toys says.
perhaps Brosnan's best performance. His charisma seems to have sharper fangs. One thing I noticed, though, is he's always pointing his Walther at people like Zukovsky when they don't pose a threat.
Yep.
But again, I think that's hilarious. Compared to Connery, who held his gun casually at his hip, reminds me of police procedurals where they always have it out to create fake tension. But like, again, when Zukovsky addresses that, like, why can't you just say hello like a normal person? Like, I think I enjoy that.
Yeah.
It's like a thing between them. Starting back in GoldenEye, it's a thing between them. When the cigarette girl at the pre-title sequence says, "Not from him,"
I can protect you. Do you understand? I can protect you.
Not from him.
which is terrible. Renard doesn't exactly live up to this Blofeld level tease, but he and Elektra are both classic, adding their own baggage to the psychological deformity roster. Would have liked Renard's superpower to come into play more in the final fight. But Bond does learn from Elektra to exploit his weakness for emotional pain. I don't find Dr. Jones any less believable than Dr. Givehead. I prefer ditzy over boring, and she brings a certain male fantasy element that had been lacking in the last two.
Okay, pause
Sure.
on there. Pause on there. We didn't talk about this. This movie, I think, is way sexier than the last two movies. And that was something that's like, this is me saying, giving the film a compliment in that while, yes, the action, I think, is lacking, and you sit in the movie and I kind of feel like this movie's a little boring and dry. That being said, Bond sleeps with like 3 different women in this film, and it's not just off camera like, oh yeah, he slept with so and so.
It's like hot every time.
It is very, it's very like, oh, when he sees that doctor and he's like, give me a clean bill of health, and like he unzips her.
Let's just skirt the issue, shall we?
I see the good doctor has cleared you. Notes you have exceptional stamina.
I'm sure she was touched by his dedication to the job in hand.
Moneypenny gets jealous of the doctor.
Yeah.
Like Moneypenny immediately.
I don't think she. I think she kind of chastised him for.
She immediately understands that.
She's like, you slept with Bond.
It's just office drama.
Remember in Tomorrow Never Dies where she has that girlfriend moment with M? And then in this one, it's another one, but it's the reverse where it's like, F you, doctor. You slept with my future husband, you bitch. Like she's slut-shaming the doctor.
Yeah, she's slut-shaming her coworker.
And then Bond is just eating it up. He's just so pleased with himself.
And then every scene with Elektra, sex scene, pillow talk scene. This movie has pillow talk scenes, which I don't think the last movie had a pillow talk scene. We've seen those in the past. We've seen the pillow talk scene of like Bond talking to the chick and they kind of talk about information. And that's something I think we totally miss. Like we haven't really talked about that. Yeah. But there's a thing about sex and men, and we love sex and we like watching sex happen. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. But for a story element thing, it's kind of like the sex is the action scene, but we get the story stuff with this pillow talk scenes.
And it's James Bond's MO too.
And we get 2 of those. Like we get, and both times we see Alexa like very, like barely dressed. And I think at even one point we get like a nip slip in there too. Yeah. Like it's a sexy movie. So I will give the movie compliments on that.
And it's all motivated. I will give you that good.
Yeah.
If you give me the clean bill of health and, if you show good stamina. Like and it's a fun little sex scene where they start making out. Like their dialogue is fun. And then Elektra, obviously there's major purpose there because the whole time she's putting off that she's innocent. It all goes back to that moment where Bond is looking at her debriefing where she's like, he was shouting all the time. And he touches her face and he's like wiping away digital tears. Remember when he's doing that to Tracy, when he's wiping the tears away? Again, that goes back to the pitch you talked about.
Damaged women. He loves damaged women.
Exactly. she's my Tracy, and then she turns out to be his Blofeld. That is a profound way of putting it. He's literally wiping her tears away, and then it turns out that she's evil. So,
Yeah.
And then at one point, Renard's like, "You should have had her when she was innocent, bro. Does it piss you off that I broke her in for you?"
You should have had her before, when she was innocent. How does it feel to know I broke her in for you?
Bond reacts so heavily to that line.
To know I broke her in for you.
I usually hate killing an unarmed man. Cold-blooded murder is a filthy business.
A man tires of being executed.
But in your case, I feel nothing. Just like you.
It's a well-known character trait of James Bond that he doesn't like killing, but Elektra's hooks are so deep inside of him that he's going to throw that out the window and take pleasure in killing this guy who supposedly raped her. And that's the moment where it's like, okay, Bond has been completely taken by this chick. Bond is way too emotionally involved. He's out of character in a really solid way. Tarkovsky is great and gets more to do than give Bond the bad guy's name.
It's true.
Very true. The action has a certain adrenaline I felt was lacking in Tomorrow and more high-class locations, even if they skip around a bit. Many set pieces don't flow with the plot and are just thrown in like we saw in Moonraker. I don't know if I agree with that.
I disagree with that. I think that the adrenaline's lacking in this film.
But there's nothing like, in Moonraker, you just had the sight gag of that stupid-ass gondola. There isn't anything like that in this.
No.
There's something close.
What's the closest thing?
When the boat goes out of the water.
He's not wrong, because I was thinking the same thing when I watched that movie. I was like, watching this, like, this reminds me of Moonraker.
You mean when he launches?
He launches up and then he gets on
He's
to
like driving
land.
around on
he's
those roads.
he's legitimately driving on land, and I'm thinking, like, how does that work?
But and that's stupid because it would immediately just fall over. Like, that is dumb, but it's still just a part of the chase, as opposed to the gondola scene is just a sight gag.
It
that
is.
You don't need.
Yeah.
You might as well complain about how Bond launches out of the water and then manages to jump out of the boat and grab the hot air balloon.
Sure.
That's what I mean. That whole chase is stupid. I think that was where the movie decided to be a popcorn eating movie as opposed to a
that
smart
chase.
one.
And
But
and
Nance
that's where I agree
keeps
with
saying he
Nance.
likes the chase. Like,
and that's where I'm at. It's like the chase, as it is. If it doesn't make sense to the plot, I get it. I 100% understand what you're saying. I just think the chase is a lot of fun and it's very memorable. And I feel like these movies need those moments.
highlights are Bond's final ski chase and one of the series' best boat chases. There you go. Originally, GoldenEye was to feature a big battle with the helicopter versus the BMW. That's why Q shows Bond all those gadgets, which he never uses. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. It got backlogged to Tomorrow, and this film, I will grant Tomorrow the better chopper fight. Okay. This one is on a crappy backlot with Bond running all over the place with no real strategy. So it's a mixed bag, but has some of the best action, plot, and villains of the Brosnan era. And that's what I'm saying.
I don't think it has the best action, but the plot and the story stuff I think works, and the villain works.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm slowly trying to explain that I don't necessarily think those things mean good movie overall. But
Yeah.
But as our list stands, I'm not 100% against what you're saying, if that makes sense.
Alfred Valerie. Alfred.
Please don't make fun of our audience.
Alfred.
Please don't make fun of our audience.
Speaking of Batman boats, that's
Please
Batman.
don't make fun of our audience.
Alfred.
You're a terrible person. Alfred wanted to talk to us. I want to hear what Alfred has to say.
My history with The World Is Not Enough is interesting for me. I had been studying in Glasgow, that's in Scotland. At the time it came out, the only thing I remember is everyone in the Scottish audience groaning at the Christmas only comes once a year. When the film
Everyone
appeared on
groans at
home
that.
video, I repeatedly watched it, particularly the opening, and reflected on what might have been had the writers fully committed to the betrayal angle. I think he's kind of reflecting what I was saying. He's saying there that he likes the opening.
Yeah.
Again, the moment that bomb goes off in
Yeah.
MI6,
And then you cut straight to the
cut
credits.
to the credits. Yeah.
Stick
You
the
know.
boat chase somewhere else.
It
in
doesn't.
a
Well,
different
you
situation.
couldn't even
know.
put it in the movie, really. But I mean,
I want that boat chase.
Give me that boat
Let
chase.
Bond chase after the sub in that or something stupid,
Yeah.
whatever. Huevos Rants says, I like The World Is Not Enough a lot. Feel like they tried bringing it back to a more classic Bond feel. By classic, I think he means Roger Moore.
I agree.
The pre-title scene is fantastic. Pierce is the business in this flick. Q has his last scene, which is amazing. Totally. The title song by Garbage is great. I think the Bond girls kind of lack in this one, even though Denise Richards is still a sexy babe. And the villainess is the villainess is sexy as well. And that torture, Christ, Huevos, you misspelled like every. I think Huevos used Google Translate because torture. That torture scene is like that scene from Casino when they hit Bond in the nuts. Totally. The other bad guy has that bullet slowly moving through his brain. I honestly like Tomorrow Never Dies a teeny bit more than this one. Interesting. But this one is kind of underrated. I love Pierce's Bond. Love you guys. Can't wait for your further videos. Huevos, we love you too.
Aww.
I especially love Huevos' name. Huevos Rants. I've never looked into the channel. And I don't
but now
want
you have to.
I don't want to because I want to just assume that, huevos means eggs. I just want to assume that he's just ranting about eggs. just ranting
Oh my God.
about eggs. And nobody knows why.
Huevos rancheros, huevos con chorizo.
Yeah.
I agree with a lot of what he has to say. I'm just in that boat of I like Tomorrow Never Dies a little bit more, just slightly more than this.
Is it because it's
They're
a guilty
close.
pleasure, or do you think it deserves more?
That's okay.
merit?
That's what I'm trying to go with when I'm talking to you about this. Is that our list is and you're like, our list isn't it's perfect. I'm
Our
like,
list is perfect.
our list is
Our list is perfect.
But again, like I said, the list is the combination of your opinion, my opinion, Nan's
The
opinion.
list is sacred.
Okay, whatever, dude.
Blasphemy! Blasphemy!
But when I sit down and I watch Tomorrow Never Dies, and I'm just like, Elliot Carver is a genius.
Genius.
He's not a genius. When I watch the movie and I'm like, Elliot Carver is ridiculous, but I am still on board for this movie. I am still on board for what's going on. I just want to know what happens to Bond, and I'm so
Very
bored.
interesting.
It's just like I'm very captivated. I'm very stuck to the screen.